This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the acquisition of WB Games, the future of Tomb Raider being revealed soon, the biggest announcements from the Game Awards according to us, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 1194. I am your host, the man who has been nominated for the least interesting podcast host of the year, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who has been nominated for Best Black PC-centric podcast theme composer of the year that resides on the East Coast, Justin, better known as I Am Sarah Khan. How you doing today? How's your week been?
My past week has been meh, and then just pretty much back to par, starting Sunday. So like last Thursday, I started coming down with a pretty bad cold, and that was plaguing me throughout a good portion of the weekends. But then I started to climb back and stuff, so I feel a whole lot better. I mean, I still have a little bit of congestion, but other than that, though, I'm pretty much better than I was before, so that's definitely good. And part of my recovery was I said, you know what, this is a good time to watch A Christmas Carol, or Scrooge as it's also known as the 1951 version. So I watched that, and man, that movie just seems to get better every time I watch that. I just really enjoy watching that version. I thought about possibly watching a couple other Christmas movies, but I was like, no, I'm gonna slow my roll. I still have time to get all of them in, so I just did that for right now. Although it was funny that you sent me one thing earlier today, because I got an email that the Lord of the Rings trilogy extended edition is coming out in theaters next month to mark the 25th anniversary of the movie's first being shown in theaters. So I think it's 2 weeks they're doing it, I think mid-January, and I'm contemplating going to see it. The thing though is the fact that they're showing it each film one day at a time, where that's nice, but you know, I wouldn't necessarily want to have to pay to go see the movie 3 times in a row. I'd rather just go and see them all at once. But I still might do it anyway, because I never actually got to see the movies in theaters before, so I'm like, why not? I might do that. But additionally, this was to mark the 50th anniversary. The original 1975 version of Star Wars is being shown in February. And this is the complete original version, not the special edition version. It's the complete. I think they somehow found the original film reel or something like that, but they're showing that in theaters in February. And so I'm thinking to myself, I might have to go and see that.
Star Wars came out in 77, though.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah, the original.
I could be wrong. Okay.
New Hope was 77.
Okay, then. So maybe it's not 50th anniversary, but they're still gonna show
49th, close enough.
They're rounding up, but they're gonna show it there. I thought, you know what, I mean, I don't think I've seen the actual pure version. I mean, I've seen the I think the remastered on VHS, but I haven't seen the original version. So I'm like,
gotcha.
I might go see that though. I might see that. So I have to figure out what the dates are, but I might consider going to see that. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much everything that's happened to me this past week.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I could bring myself to go see the Lord of the Rings movies in theaters again, at least, especially not with that kind of setup. But mostly because of the fact that it's like I've watched these movies, you know, over a dozen times in the past nearly 25 years since Fellowship came out. And yeah, I just, I don't think I could bring myself to do that. But I also got to see all of them in theaters. I mean, I saw Fellowship pretty late because that was my first real exposure to Lord of the Rings, even though I'd read The Hobbit in 8th grade. But, um, yeah, I remember I watched Fellowship in the theater. Like, I went with a friend, and um, I I went there and I ended up having like a fever. Like I wasn't sick, otherwise I had a fever, and so I was like chilled the whole time, and I just wasn't feeling great. And then I went home after we watched the movie, and took a hot shower, which warmed me up. I was feeling a lot better after that. I was like, man, I really liked that movie. So I went back and saw it again the following weekend. And then I watched it like a bunch of times after it came out on DVD. And then Two Towers I saw on opening day, and Return of the King, it was, it came out the year that I moved to Alaska, so it was, I did get to see it in the theater, but I saw it probably, I want to say a couple months after it came out. I can't remember exactly. I just remember that it was winter time that I saw it. And I don't remember exactly what the release date was. I just remember it was 2003. So. But yeah. I mean, still, it would be very cool to see it in theaters. It's just, I can't imagine spending that much time in the theater and all that. But, yeah. In terms of my week, I'm trying to think of what of anything that, like, of note that has happened. I have a feeling that probably I'm going to forget a whole bunch of stuff. But let me think here. Yeah. I feel like there's something that was like bigger that happened, and I really cannot remember for the life of me. But I'll note something that was kind of funny and also like, so, my wife had gotten some stuff for like a bird feeder project, something to do with the homeschooling thing. And part of what she needed for that was a block of lard, and like put bird seed and stuff on it. I don't know exactly how all of it works. But she had left the supplies, the majority of the supplies related to that, on the school shelf, but she didn't realize she had left the lard in the bag. And our puppy decided to get into it. She ate half a block of lard.
Oh no.
We were trying to figure out why she wasn't hungry, and then we found that she'd eaten half of a block of lard. It's just like, oh, that makes me sick just thinking about it. I was like, I don't have a problem using lard for cooking, but that just sounds horrific. I just can't imagine how terrible I would feel after something like that. So yeah, that was a funny situation. I feel like there's something else that's happened, but honestly, like, I can't remember for the life of me what it would be. Yeah, I know there's something else I'm forgetting about. It's been kind of an interesting week. Not necessarily like anything major has happened. I guess weekend pretty much just kind of was a vegetable most of the weekend, so that was nice. But my wife was in the mood for potato soup on Sunday, along with some pulled pork that I was already planning to make. But rather, I took carnitas and then just made some barbecue sauce and mixed that in, and we had pulled pork sandwiches. But she wanted some potato soup too, because it was just kind of a cold day, really windy and that sort of thing. And so I made it from scratch, and it came out delicious, even though I was completely faking it. So I always like it when I fake something and then it comes out great, and that makes me happy. So, but yeah, gosh, I know there's something else I'm forgetting about, but I guess it must not have been anything all that important. It's just been kind of a week. That's really the best way to put it. But this week, this Friday, Saturday, we have a Christmas party with all the parents for the homeschool co-op. So it's ugly sweater party and also white elephant gift. And so This is a reference, a deep cut reference that most people are not going to get, and I don't even know if you would get it because I can't remember I don't think you ever really watched Strong Bad. But the White Elephant gift I'm doing is Deep Impact on DVD, which it's, like I said, it's a deep cut specifically related to a homestarrunner.com cartoon, which is where Strong Bad comes from. And their Christmas, one of their Christmas tunes, Homestar Runner gave Strong Bad a Deep Impact DVD 3 years in a row for Christmas. And so that is why I'm going to do it. And I'm going to just put 2 Strong Bad from Homestar and see if anybody else catches it, because enough of the people who are parents as part of this co-op are basically right around the same age. So I figured there might be somebody who gets it. If anybody gets it, I'm going to give them a thumbs up and bond over that, because I mean, they haven't really done much of anything in the past 20 years. Like, they'll do stuff off and on here and there. Like, they put out like a new Strong Bad email recently. Speaking of which, I should tell you, so the Strong Bad emails, that is where Jordan Taylor from Blimey Cow got his inspiration for messages.
Really?
From Strong Bad emails. That's where he got his inspiration for doing that. And I had also, like, when I was still able to communicate with Josh years ago, I had mentioned to him the idea of doing, because they were so familiar with Strong Bad, and because of the fact that Big Head Kid was like basically has the voice of Homestar Runner, I suggested that they do Homeschool Runner, and of course they loved that idea, but they never ended up doing it. I think Jordan might have actually had a similar idea to do something like that, and I don't know why they never did, but yeah, I remember Josh telling me that Jordan either liked that idea and or they had talked about doing that, but it just obviously never happened. But yeah, trying to remember where I was going with this. Oh yes, okay. So then, yeah, I think that's all that's really coming up, other than, you know, we have the Game Awards tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Thursday, because it's normally we record on Wednesday, but this week now we're recording on Tuesdays. So anyway, Game Awards are this week, and I'm planning to watch that. I don't know that I'll stream it, but there's a small chance I would. I do want to mention also, I will tune in as much as I can to watch your stream. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do, just because Friday nights are, you know, family night. So I'll probably at least tune in a little bit after dinner while I'm working on PowerPoint and stuff for stuff on Sunday. So, but yeah, I can't think of anything else. That's probably everything.
Yeah, and I'll definitely tune in to all the announcements afterwards, since I'll be at the company Christmas party.
That's right. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not quite as long as usual. I mean, I know it's supposed to start at like 6:30 Central Time, because it's 7:30 Eastern Time. So I will try to tune in, and if nothing else, just have it on kind of in the background and play something at the same time. That'll probably end up being what I do. But I'm hoping there's at least some good stuff. But
well,
yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, but anyway, what have you been playing this week?
So I've been pretty much just playing the one thing, and that has been Batman Arkham Asylum. I just didn't really, since I just wasn't feeling up to playing stuff, I ended up doing that mostly. I thought I was much further in the game than I was, but then I realized, no, I still have, I had several things to do left, so I went to Killer Croc Slayer, which I must admit is, well, also I forgot, I had one more Scarecrow scenario to take care of, and then I had the Killer Croc area, which it's not as I mean, it definitely is tense, but I didn't know that you actually can walk. You don't actually have to crouch and just crawl. As long as you walk slowly, you can just walk across the platforms, not disturb him at all. So
Okay.
that was
Good
kind
to
of
know.
interesting to know about. But yeah, so did that. Then had to go to Poison Ivy, fight her, which took more times than I care to admit, but took care of that. Then I got to the fight you're seeing right now, and oh boy, this thing, I don't know why this gave me so much difficulty. It took me about an hour to get through this fight, and I was so frustrated because I came close to being it twice but kept dying. And part of the reason why is just because you don't have the warning indicators when an enemy's about to punch you, and so that's like one thing. And then you have to deal with 2 titans, and they're throwing stuff at you sometimes, and then you have enemies come up from behind you and sucker punch you, and so it was very aggravating. And miraculously though, the final time when I did beat this fight, I got through it without taking any damage at all.
Wow.
Which I don't know how, I don't know why, but that happened. Then of course got to Joker as the final boss, and I forgot that you don't treat the boss fight like any other Titan fight, so I died the first time thinking I had to take him head on, but then I realized, oh no, that was wrong, that was a mistake, and then I beat him the second time. But yeah, so I finished the game on hard difficulty, and so I thought about it, and after speaking with someone who recently got all the achievements for Arkham Asylum, I said, I might go ahead and try to get the challenge maps and complete that. So I think because I completed the game on hard difficulty, and I finally got to have the warning indicators again, and also I happened to sort of somewhat master the combat to a degree. I've cleared most of the challenge maps for combat. I just have the final 2 to complete, and I have to get all the I just have to get a high enough score, and then that's done. And I've gone through half of the stealth challenges as well. So I'm hoping I can get through the second half, but if I can, then I'll be surprised that I finally actually completed one Arkham game to 100% completion. It's never gonna happen again with any of the others, but at least one is complete. So I'll try to knock all that out, but I'll see what happens. I'm not holding my breath on that end, but I did think about it also. Playing Arkham Asylum will be a nice warm-up for Origins on Friday, so
nice.
I should hopefully, do pretty well. I shouldn't die too early in the game. But yeah, that's everything that has happened this past week with games.
Nice. Yeah, and that's a good point, especially because Origins really is a lot more refined on the combat than Asylum was, and so it's like technically you're playing the third game. I mean, it's pretty close to City, but it's refined a bit in other ways. Although I was never a fan of the combat scoring thing. That just annoyed me because I'm terrible at the combat. But otherwise, I mean, it's still a pretty solid game. So that's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely be tuning in as much as I can. It'll probably be like I'll tune in after we do our dinner, and then maybe depending on what time my wife goes to bed. I mean, whether she stays up later or if she goes to bed early, I may or may not tune in after that if you're still playing at that point, which you probably will be. But what time are you starting?
It's gonna be between 7:30 Eastern time, so I guess 6:30 Central time. It might be close to 7:30 just because I work that day and I have to make dinner afterwards, so that's why I might have to bump it closer to 7:30.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, in terms of what I've been playing, there's really only been 2 games. First and foremost, I continued playing and finished Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. So, there was a little break in there for another game that I started playing, but I'll be talking about that a bit later. I just basically decided to push through, though, because I really wanted to make sure that I actually completely finished it, since I got the remaster in 2019 or 2020, and even though I've beaten this game multiple times before, I've never beaten the actual remaster. And so it's just like, okay, I want to finish this completely. So I went ahead and played and finished the rest of the game. Of course, it's a great game, but I definitely would say the remaster does not really add enough to make it any better than the regular version. So like pretty much for people who have PC, I would say probably it's better to go for just the original one and mod it rather than going with the remastered version, because while the remastered version does update the character models, that's really all it does. Well, I mean, I guess, well, the only other thing it does is that it, if you press in on the left stick, it speeds up the game to 3 times speed. If you press it on the right stick, it basically makes it so that you have instant charged limit breaks and your ATB bar is fully charged the whole time. So basically, it's just like you can, it just makes it absurdly easy. And I barely used that. I basically only used it when I was like in a couple of really annoying grinding things. So like first thing that's being shown here in the footage is fighting against Bahamut. And so there's this facility that you go to. It's a late end game thing. You can't do it until late disc 3. And when you go there, you have you start off by you having to walk up to this I don't really know what to call it exactly, but it's like a mechanical core that's pulsating lights. And anytime the light's pulsating, monsters will spawn. But you can't run away from the encounters. You have to fight it, and it's always a really early that part it's really strong, or it's regular monsters that are easy, but it's just extremely high encounter rate. But then when you get to the pillar, you're basically talking to Bahamut, and you have to answer questions. If you answer them correctly initially, you'll just get like a really powerful monster shows up that you have to fight, and does that for a little bit. But then once you have answered all the questions correctly, you actually fight him. And the fight against him is actually not that bad, but it still just made that portion of it annoying. What was more annoying, though, was getting to Ultima Weapon, which is who you fight at the bottom of this facility. And it's primarily like when you get past a certain point in it, the random encounter rate is extremely high, and they're powerful monsters, and you can't run from them. So you have to fight every single one, and it's a long way down, too. So it becomes really obnoxious. And then when you get to Ultima Weapon, he is very strong. And he has an attack he can use that one hit kills anyone it hits. So it's just, I mean, it only can hit one person at a time, but it can one hit kill him. So first time I went in, I was expecting, okay, I'll be able to get through this without too much difficulty. I mean, it is one of the harder fights in the game, but it's not that difficult. I got completely slaughtered the first time. And it was really just I wasn't as prepared, because it's been many years since the last time I played through this. And so I, attempted it and failed miserably. It was really late Saturday night when I stopped, and I just decided, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep. I'll try this again tomorrow after church. Get back to it Sunday after church. Better prepared myself, was able to get to the fight without any real difficulty, which was good. But the annoying thing was that, how I mentioned the draw system, how you draw magic and that sort of thing. There are certain enemies that also have GFs, which are the equivalent of Espers and Eidolons, that you draw from them. And I forgot to draw the GF from him. And of course, it's the last one I needed. It's also the most powerful one in the entire game, the only one that can go above 9999 damage. And so as much as it pained me, I went ahead and went back to my save before I fought him. And then redid the fight, and I had to do it a couple times because I lost the first time. But the footage that's shown here is my victory against him. It's just that it's not the one where I actually drew the GF. So either way, I mean, it worked out pretty well, and it was good to get that completed because it has some good rewards for this quest, most notably that GF, which you can technically get it again from a different enemy in the final dungeon, but because of the fact that that's kind of late and it's a really useful GF to have before then, I just thought it was going to be easier to just redo the fight. So one thing that, just a small thing that I want to note here, is that with this fight against Ultima Weapon, he's actually holding Cloud's Ultima Weapon from Final Fantasy VII in his hand. It's like exactly the same model as the one that Cloud has in Final Fantasy VII. So I always thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, so let's see here. Okay, so then after I did that, I did other various remaining quests I had. There wasn't much of anything. It was mostly just stuff related to the card game and that sort of thing. But I went into the final dungeon for the game, and like as I was getting ready to go into it, I was trying to do like some card battling stuff that would enable me to get cards I had previously modified in order to get special items from, because disc 4 you can modify those, you can reobtain the cards that you got rid of to modify into items, and then remodify them so that you can get more of those rare items. But I ended up, after multiple times of just getting really terrible rules that made it very difficult to actually get through, I finally just decided, it doesn't matter. I'll just manage with what little of particular item I have for when I go to fight Omega Weapon, which is like the hardest boss of the game. It's the main big super boss in the game. I mean, Ultima Weapon's a super boss, but Omega Weapon is like 10 times the super boss. Has over 1 million HP and that sort of thing. So, and he also has an attack that can one-shot your entire team if you don't have invincibility on. Which, it's specifically, there's an item that provides invincibility for a limited amount of time. So, but yeah, I did go in to fight Omega Weapon, and the footage will play here eventually, most likely. But Omega Weapon, thankfully, was not as difficult for me. I think he still took me a couple of tries. But the major thing is just that I had the item I needed in order to be invincible for that fight. At least as much as I could, and had as much preparation as I could to be able to use limit breaks while invincibility was active, and so on and so forth. And that definitely made it easier to get through the fight than it would have been otherwise, but yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to mention. The actual bosses in the final dungeon otherwise were not difficult. The final boss I finished on my first try without any problems. Yeah, nothing really of note. I've beaten this game probably 4 or 5 times at least, and so I'm very familiar with all that stuff. I mean, like, I still typically will use the official strategy guide I have from the PS1 just because it's kind of like, I guess, tradition, you could say. Plus, also, sometimes it's just kind of helpful for certain things that, like, okay, I don't remember exactly what kind of weaknesses this boss has, whether it matters or not. So it's kind of helpful to have that type of information. But a lot of it was just like, okay, it's been probably 10 plus years since the last time I played through Final Fantasy VIII, so I may as well just go ahead and, use the guide, and especially because also like getting specific rare cards, making sure I complete all the side quests and that sort of thing is not always the easiest thing to remember to do. So there's that. Oh, and I guess one thing I forgot to mention is that I played it. I mean, obviously I was playing it on my Switch OLED, and I played it docked a little bit. When I actually did docked, though, because of the fact that my kids have been using my Pro controller for their Switch, I just decided, okay, I'll just use my my QRD controller, which works. But the one downside with it is because the fact that the A and B and X and Y are reversed, it doesn't recognize them as being in the positions that they are on the Nintendo controller, so muscle memory was really throwing me off. Eventually, when I was playing the other game I'll be talking about a little bit on the Switch OLED, I went ahead and just borrowed the regular Pro controller from the kids for that, because the QRD controller just wasn't working properly for that. I mean, like, more just because of muscle memory than anything else. Otherwise, it works great, but I didn't even bother trying using the back buttons for that. So, but that gets me to talking about the other game I've been playing. And as I mentioned last week that I was very seriously considering it, I grabbed Metroid Prime 4. Now, because of the fact that I still have the Switch 2, I haven't yet been able to get rid of it. Partially just because I've only listed in the 2 places. And I did get one potential bite, but then after I told them what I was asking for it, they asked their brother if he was interested, and he said no, so I still need to list it elsewhere. But anyway, because I still had the Switch 2, I decided, even though I had the cartridge for the Switch 1 version, that I would play this on Switch 2. Mostly because it's like, I still had the Switch 2, I wanted to test out the mouse controls, and on top of that, the option for 120 frames per second and being able to actually take advantage of the 1440p OLED HDR monitor. Because, of course, the Switch 2 screen, it's kind of like a fake HDR on it, and it's not OLED. But, I figured I would test it out. And more than anything, I just really wanted to know about mouse mode and 120 frames per second mode. And so I have tested both the 120 frames per second mode, which is in 1080p docked, and then 720p handheld, and the quality mode that is it's technically 4K docked, but it's because my monitor is 1440p, it's 1440p 60, and then handheld it is 1080p 60. So I tested out on both versions. The short way to put it is that I decided to stick with the high frame rate mode. Because even though 720p, like I've said before, that the Switch 1 games, because they're 720p stretched to the 1080p screen, that it doesn't look so good. For the Switch 2 games that are actually, for a Switch 2 game that actually has a lot more detail in the graphics, it's actually not nearly as bad. Like, it actually still looks pretty good, even with the image stretched out like that, because there's just a lot more detail to the image. Plus, also the fact that it uses DLSS on the game makes it so that it kind of makes up for some of that. So, that's kind of the short, is that I decided to stick with 120 FPS mode, both docked and handheld. Now, the big thing is that testing out the mouse mode, I don't like it. It's really unfortunate. Initially the way the controls were set up, it wasn't set up by default to do like mouse mode normally. Like it basically had it to where you could switch to the mouse mode, but it was only sort of mouse mode. Like, it was basically kind of doing a hybrid between using the joysticks and not. And so, like, it was having the shot map to, I think it was ZR. Yeah, ZR. And then the missiles map to R. So basically it was like it would be if you were holding it like a normal Joy-Con, if you're holding it normally instead of holding it like a mouse. And that was really throwing me off. It was just not working. And then I figured out there's actually a separate mode that has it where it's just a mouse and then it's laid out better. So the layout was fine, but the problem is that it's just way too small for my hand. And so, although it's certainly better than the regular Switch Joy-Cons, it's still just, it was cramping my hand. So I played the entire beginning section, the prologue, before you get sent off to another planet and lose all your powers and everything, all your upgrades. I played the entirety of that with the mouse, and it just didn't feel very good. Of course, there's some oddities with it anyway, because of the fact that, you know, with Prime, you have the lock-on feature, but then you also, if you're doing mouse mode, you have the free aim. And so probably at least part of this was my own fault, because I'm used to locking on when I'm playing Prime, but it was making it so that the aiming wasn't working quite as well, even though you can do free aim while locked on. And it just wasn't very smooth. But really the biggest thing is just that it's so small that it's just not comfortable. And so after I finished up the intro section, I did not play any further with mouse mode. I switched over to the traditional type controls, but you can turn on gyro because it's not on by default. And that works much better. I've been having a much better time playing it since I made that change. But essentially it was just that's what I wanted to do from that standpoint, and I wish that the mouse mode was better, but it's just really, really not good. It might be fine if you have small hands, but my hands are just too big for that. So if I could use like a real mouse, it would probably be a whole lot better, because like I love playing. Anytime I play a first-person game, especially first-person shooters on PC, I always use the mouse. I think the only time I've really made an exception is like occasionally playing something like Dying Light was one where I ended up making the exception, because I ended up finding the controls worked really well. But that one I'm not doing shooting as much as other stuff. So anyway, going beyond that, so getting into the actual like handheld experience, and there's no footage of handheld mode because I didn't take the time to record it, but the handheld mode, like I said before, even with 720p, it still looked good. I mean, it obviously looks better at 1080p. But having that 120 FPS is just so much smoother. It felt really good, and I couldn't not do that. Especially because the image quality didn't suffer enough to where it felt like it was a big loss making that change. So I'm really glad that they have that option, and it's definitely made the experience really good from that standpoint. And in handheld mode, I've been pretty pleased with how it looks and how it runs. So I'm really happy with the work they did from that standpoint. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say about that before I get into the actual Switch 1 versus Switch 2 comparison. Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head from that standpoint. So we'll get into the actual like Switch 1 and Switch 2 comparison. So the footage that's playing here is docked for both, obviously. And I will say I did try out the game on Switch 1 in handheld mode as well. I started with it in handheld mode, and I need to try booting up Prime Remastered to see how it compares visually. It was definitely more had more aliasing issues for this game in handheld mode on the Switch OLED, but it still ran at a solid 60, and it still looked good enough. When I did it docked, though, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 900p and then 60 frames per second. I mean, I know for a fact it's 60. I'm pretty sure it's 900p. That's what they did for Prime Remastered. And it definitely looks much better. I mean, it's not a bad experience on the OLED by any stretch. And I think if I had started with the OLED, I probably wouldn't have noticed it quite as much as when I started with the Switch 2 version. But yeah, it still looks and plays well on the Switch OLED. And on the Switch 2, well, I guess I've pretty much already said everything about the Switch 2 as far as performance goes. But yeah, I mean, overall, like the Switch, the standard Switch performance and visuals, still good. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention about that. I mean, right now, like, as long as I still have the Switch 2, I'm going to keep playing it on the Switch 2. Because it's just, 120 frames per second. Like, that's just too good to not do. Now, if I manage to sell my Switch 2 and someone wants to buy it before I finish the game, and like I'm, still quite a ways out right now from finishing the game because I'm still pretty early on, then I'd be fine with just playing it on the regular Switch. But I figure as long as I still have the Switch 2, I might as well play it there. It's like, I would say this is the first time where I've had a game that is worth owning a Switch 2 for. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy a Switch 2 to play this game, because you definitely shouldn't. But I will say that it's one game that I definitely would say takes advantage of what the Switch 2 is capable of. And, of course, being able to play any game at 120 frames per second always makes the game better. It doesn't matter what the game is. It could be a visual novel, and it will still be better at 120 frames per second than it is at 60. And I still think 60 should be the standard, but 120 is amazing. So, getting into the actual gameplay. So, I have very mixed feelings about this game. Now, I will say that when it gets the Metroid Prime stuff right, which it does a lot of the time, it's great. Like when you're in like the main, I guess you could say dungeons, that's really the best way to put it, because I mean that's the various areas that you go to, where you're doing the traditional Prime stuff. It feels like Metroid Prime. It does lack a lot of the backtracking aspects so far, like for collectibles. Like there's a little bit here and there, but there's not as much of like, oh, I can't get into this door, or like there's this missile upgrade hidden behind a wall, and I can tell that that's there, but I know I need an upgrade in order to get to it. Like there's some of that still, for sure, and there definitely will be some that I'll come across more as I play. But it's not quite as frequent, and I feel like that definitely hurts the Metroid aspect of it. But also just some of the decisions they made with this game definitely make it feel much more like a Zelda game with a Metroid skin than like a Metroid game. And to be clear, like I'm not saying this is a bad game, because it's not. It's actually quite good. Like I'm enjoying myself quite a lot with it. But certain decisions they've made definitely make it feel more Zelda than Metroid. So let me start off with a couple things. Of course, there's obviously the big elephant in the room, which is the NPCs. So one thing that I decided to do before I even encountered any of them is I turned the voice volume all the way down. I'd contemplated getting rid of subtitles as well, but then I realized no, because when it comes to getting the story stuff from like the alien race or whatever, bits of lore that are actually stuff I would like to read, I don't want to not be able to read that. It's unfortunate that I can't like separate whose dialogue I can hear and whose I can't, because I would the idea would be that the like alien race dialogue I can hear, and then the dialogue from the Federation soldiers I can't hear. But since I don't have that option, I just turned off the volume for the dialogue period. One thing I do just want to note real quickly, the footage started off with both the Switch and the Switch 2 for the boss battle, but because it took me longer to finish the Switch 1 version of the boss battle, even though I beat it on my first try, where the Switch 2 took me multiple tries. I'll get to that. The footage that's playing right now is the Switch 1 footage. So, and because of the fact that I couldn't record in 120 frames per second, you won't actually get to see that difference from that standpoint. So now I just switched back to showing both of them as they're both going to be finishing the fight. But anyway, so going back to the NPCs. Of course, the first one you encounter is Miles McKenzie, and the writing for him is very cringy. It's very bad. But it is definitely not nearly as intrusive when you don't have to hear him talk. Because of the fact that you can kind of just like ignore a lot of what he says really easily. And that's kind of what I ended up doing. Is basically, particularly like with that opening scene where you first meet him and it's like doing the really cringy dialogue. And then after that, like if he starts talking, most of the time I just ignore him. What's annoying though, and I can't tell if it only happened when I had tutorials still turned on or if it still happens afterward, is that like one of the first dungeon places I went to, he basically said, you need to get to this place. You can go to the elevator here and the elevator here, and don't forget to save. Now, I can only assume, since that hasn't happened since, that it's because I still had tutorials turned on at the time. And I think that once I turned off tutorials, it didn't seem like that was really happening. One of the complaints that I had heard was that when it came to like when you're out in the open, out in the desert area, which is like the kind of like the hub that you use to get to the different biomes, that if you're not getting to the objective quickly enough, he'll call you on your comms and say, hey, this is where you could be going. And, if you bring up your map, then he'll point to where, he'll like zoom in to where you need to go and then tell you this is where you should be going. Or, this is where you can be going. I did find that definitely when I was out traveling the desert, that there were times where he would, in fact, tell me, hey, you should consider going to this area next. But as far as the part where it like points you to the spot on the map and tells you repeatedly every time you open the map, it really doesn't do that any more often than it did in the other Prime games. Because, the other Prime games, of course, it wouldn't have words on the screen, but it would like zoom out and then zoom into a part with a little question mark of, this is where you should be going. There was only the one time that he actually was like, you do this and this and make sure to save, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly less intrusive when the voice volume is turned off, because most of the time I can just completely ignore him. It's not affecting my gameplay. I can listen to the music. I can enjoy the game itself. And it's like, okay, this is nice. This is good. When I'm in the main dungeon type areas, whatever you want to call them, I guess you could call them the biomes. Most of the time, it's a pleasant experience. I do wish there was more secrets around that I felt like, oh, I need to come back to this later. But there are still some, and you can actually mark them on your map, which, while I could definitely understand people having issues with that, at the same time, for me, it's kind of like a mixed thing, because on the one hand, it's kind of neat to be able to rediscover something, but at the same time, it's also kind of annoying at times when you're trying to remember, okay, where was that collectible that I missed? And being able to actually mark it on the map is helpful. especially because it's not like the game's marking it for you. And of course, also, if you think back to the old Metroid games like Super Metroid and everything like that, it wouldn't mark the exact type of collectible that you had in the spot, but if you came across a room, or after you got the map for the area, when you came across, I mean, there would be a map marker with a little square, a little dot in it, so there was something there to find. So, that being said, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so the NPC thing has been kind of mixed for me. Like, of course, Miles was obnoxious, and unfortunately, fortunately, after you get to the central location that you go to occasionally, he just stays there. And then he'll just occasionally get you on comms, but most of the time it's easy to ignore. I still think it shouldn't even be there, or it should be possible to completely turn it off, but it's not as bad as it could be. And I'm not saying that it's not something that should be criticized. I'm just saying that it's not as bad as it could be. I can live with it if the rest of the game is good. And I did just come across the second of the Federation soldiers, and he wasn't obnoxious like Miles. So that certainly made it better from that standpoint. One other thing I want to note. So the scan visor stuff, of course, you still have millions of scans like you always do in the Prime games. Something that they added is because of the fact that now the scan stuff is related to your psychic abilities, you also have other psychic ability related stuff in there. Like, for example, there's a beam that you can use in psychic mode while you're in the scan thing, which is kind of cool in one sense, because it's like, okay, when I'm in the scan mode, I can still technically fire my weapon instead of just exiting after I scan. But then also, because I'm so used to, as soon as I fire my weapon after I scan something, then it automatically takes me out of scanner mode. I keep trying to do that, and sometimes it will fire my psychic beam, which is like one where you can control where it goes and that sort of thing, kind of like the remote battering. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to use that beam right now. I want to use a regular beam. And so you just have to like tap it rather than trying to hold it down, because if you hold it down, then it will use the other beam. But then there's also like a couple things where there was one time where I had the tutorials turned off, and I had forgotten about one of the different things you can do with the morph ball bombs. And so like I spent all this time trying to bomb this like high up morph ball bomb slot. And it's like you have the ability to jump with the morph ball, just do a single jump, and then you can use your bombs. I'm just trying to like figure out, how am I supposed to get up here? This doesn't seem like this is the right way to do this, because usually the game doesn't do that kind of thing unless you're supposed to get like some high jump later on, but this is pretty obviously where I need to go. And so then I turned the tutorial back on and was reminded that one of the abilities you have in the psychic mode is when you're in morph ball, you can hold down the button to drop a bomb, and it will like just basically set one up in the air as like a psychic orb that you can control in your psychic mode, and then you can move it with your mind over to the bomb slot and activate it that way. So it's like, okay, that's a pretty cool thing. I like that. I will say, like, so far most of the abilities are not anything dramatically different from what we've had in previous Prime games. I think some of them are executed a little better, like not having to rely on motion controls like you did in Metroid Prime 3, where sometimes the motion controls were good, and then other times were kind of like, that's a little too gimmicky for my taste. But let me think here. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything revolutionary with the abilities. It really doesn't. I mean, I just want to play a Metroid Prime game. I don't care too much if it's super fancy, everything's new, or if it's basically all just repeats with a different areas, different bosses, and that sort of thing. So I'm relatively fine with that. But then we get to Viola, the motorcycle. So I have extremely mixed feelings on this one. Now, the footage that's shown, initially I'm on the bike in one of the dungeon areas. It's like a tower, and there's a track that loops around for part of it. It's a massive area, and you use the bike some. And the bike itself, like, it actually controls really well. It's kind of fun to drive, especially when you're in the areas where you have the ability to drive around a dungeon. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, it handles really well. I like the way it drives. And one of the things that's being shown now, like early on when you first get it, there's a training course you can go to where basically it just teaches you the functionality of how it works to get your license for it. And in there, it's like, okay, teaches you the basics, teaches you how to do all the different things you need to do. That you can do with the bike. And what's really nice about it, what I really like, is the music that plays while you're riding this bike in this course. And I realize that it's just the theme for the motorcycle itself. It's just, it's what I linked to you, the viola theme. It's just like, that's a really good track. I really, really like that. And I wish that it was something that would play while you're riding the bike around the desert. Because the desert... Now, there's no footage here of the desert that I recorded. The desert is something where it has so much wasted potential. Now, first of all, this is one of the things that makes it more Zelda-like. And I'll kind of get more into it, but the desert area, it's very large and open. There's really not much to it. We're like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had lots of little secrets all over the place. This one, it has some, but I kid you not, there are shrines in the world, the open world. Now, I don't think there's a lot of them. I've come across like 4, maybe 5 of them, and I think only 2 of them I've been able to access so far, because one of them had a seal that was related to a lightning beam, and another one related to an ice beam that I don't have yet. But I mean, the fact that they have shrines, I was like, come on, this is Metroid. I mean, I don't know. The types of puzzles that they have, still fit with Metroid, but it's just like, can you just leave Metroid as Metroid? Stop trying to, don't make it Zelda. I mean, I realize, yes, it will probably appeal to a wider audience, but you don't need to do that for Metroid. All you had to do was just give us another Metroid Prime. If it was even half as good as Metroid Prime 3. And Metroid Prime 3 definitely had its issues, but was still a solid game. If it's even half as good as that, we'll be happy with it. Like, of course, it would be great, obviously, to have it be even better or the best or whatever. But, I just want it to be the same. And the big problem with the desert was, apart from the fact that it's just very empty, is the fact that there's not really any music. There is technically music that plays, but it's just like really quiet ambient sounds, and it's not anything that's like noticeable. Like, you can't hear it over the motorcycle at all. You just cannot hear it. Like, all I can hear is the sounds of the motorcycle and when I crash into crystals, because that's basically the majority of what you have out there. Occasionally you'll come across enemies that you can shoot, which you can shoot from your bike. Like, your bike shoots off like discs and stuff, and it's pretty cool. You can like do a slide, like an Akira slide into the enemies and that sort of thing. There's boosts you can do to like pick up items that are high up and that sort of thing. I mean, like, it's not like it's completely empty, but it's empty enough to where it's noticeable. And the fact that there's no music, and that the one thing that they say is the music for it is basically nothing, and you basically cannot hear it unless you are unless you are walking around, and even then it's just barely noticeable. It's just not worth it. Whereas, like, if I had the option to just have the viola theme playing while I was riding it around, it would make going around the open world one of my favorite things. I mean, it still wouldn't feel like Metroid, but at least the music would be good, and it would make it a lot more enjoyable. It's like when I play something like a Xenoblade game, and one of the things that's always most memorable, especially like something like Xenoblade Chronicles X particularly, had like amazing overworld themes, and it just made exploration that much better. And it's just something that's so severely lacking here. And I wish that this open area did not exist. Like, I understand part of what they're trying to do is they're being like, oh, well, you know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for all these different biomes to be directly connected to each other. I don't care. I don't care if it makes sense. That's how Metroid has always done it. That's the way it should be done. And I'm not saying it because that's how it's always done it. But the point is that this open area in between, this open hub area, does not feel like a Metroid thing. It's never been a Metroid thing, and it shouldn't be a Metroid thing. It never should have been added to Metroid because it's not a Zelda game. Keep Zelda games, keep Metroid games, Metroid games. Don't try to mix the two. Just keep them separated. And now it kind of makes me understand why it is that God of War fans disliked God of War 2018 and Ragnarok so much, because it was such a departure from what God of War was. And it's like, now I can really sympathize with them on that, even though I really like the newer God of War games a lot. My issue with the old God of War games was never the gameplay. It was the nudity and the sex and that kind of stuff that was present, that I took issues with. But with this, but between the having a bit too much hand holding, and like I can deal with it. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's obnoxious, and I wish it wasn't there. But with the voices turned down, it's not nearly as egregious as it is without them. I mean, with the voices on. But the fact that it's just departing too much and trying to be too much like Zelda and not enough its own thing definitely bothers me. So as kind of the summary of my thoughts on this whole thing, I think that so far from what I played, and I'm still pretty early on, I have 2 of the 5 keys I need, and I don't know, you know, how many hours the game actually has. I feel like it's a good game, but it's not a good Metroid game. Because it's just, I think the problem is that the standard is so much higher for Metroid, at least in terms of what to expect with Metroid. Like, you know, there are certain things that just make a really good Metroid game, like really solid areas to explore and secrets to discover and bosses to face and a bunch of stuff like that that's just like makes Metroid games really memorable and really fun. And, you know, being able to come back with backtracking, being like, oh, you know, there was that thing back there that I needed the power bombs for, and now I can go use the power bombs. Or, you know, I needed that beam and I couldn't get there before, but oh, now I need to go there. And like, I look on the map and see, okay, where do I need to go next? And I see that there was a door that I couldn't previously open that now I can open. That kind of stuff is one of the things that makes Metroid Prime games the Metroid games so special and makes them really stand out. And when you take away that and make that less of a focus, it feels less like a Metroid game. And then, of course, the fact that they're definitely taking more elements from Zelda than not, it's just kind of like in this weird spot where it's not really Metroid, it's not really Zelda, it's kind of something in between the two, but it's too much like Zelda and not enough like Metroid. And I still think, what I played at least, it's still a good game. And it's not like it's not Metroid at all. It's just not as much Metroid as the other Prime games were. And they've been saying that this is basically the start of a new trilogy that they're going to do. And like, I guess as long as I go into future games with the idea in mind that this is what's going to be like for the remaining games, I can just look at it as this is a new series. This is not the regular Metroid. This is like inspired by Metroid, I guess you could say. And considering the fact that basically none of the original people who worked on the Prime games are still with Retro Studios anyway, it is what it is. I'm still going to keep playing this game for sure. This is the game I'm playing right now, whether I play it exclusively on Switch 2 or eventually switch over to Switch 1, depending on whether I manage to sell it before I finish or not. But I don't know. It has a lot of wasted potential, and there are things I definitely have to say that are super positive about this game. Particularly, the performance is fantastic. Visually, I think it's very well done, and I do think that there's a lot of really good things about this. It's just that as a Metroid Prime game, it falls short of the greatness of the previous games. And I'm still hoping that we will get Prime 2 and 3 re-released. And I still think that overall I will enjoy this game. But it's just not quite the same. One thing I actually almost forgot to mention that is pretty important. So the music for the bike while you're in the desert. So, of course, like I said, there is that ambient track that's not really music as far as I'm concerned. There is a way to get music, but it's locked behind an amiibo, at least as the way to get it in your first playthrough. Because supposedly when you beat the game or you 100% the game, I'm not sure which it is because I've heard conflicting reports, you unlock the radio that you can use in order to access the ability to listen to music while you're riding. And you basically just get to pick whatever track you want to listen to. So it's any track from the game as far as I am aware. And then but some people have said that the amiibo unlocks the actual radio function, and that even if you beat the game 100%, it doesn't actually unlock the radio. It just unlocks some tracks. And so I like I said, it's conflicting reports. I'm not really sure exactly how all of that works. But of course, there's lots of people, mostly Nintendo fanboys, defending it. A lot of them defending the fact that there's no like real music in the desert because it's like, well, it doesn't need to have the music. And I think I wouldn't be as bothered by the lack of music in the desert if it wasn't for the simple fact that you can get music by buying the $30 amiibo. And you can unlock it after you've completed the game when there's no guarantee you're going to want to go back and play the game again. And so it's I've heard some people actually have bought the amiibo, scanned it through the box because it's one of the few that you can actually do that through, and then returned the amiibo. Which I would want to do, mostly just because of the fact that it's you spend a lot of time driving around this desert, and having some music would just make it so much better. Especially if I could just play the viola music. I just want to play that the whole time. Just have that be the theme music for while I'm out in the desert, because it's so epic, and it's like, I don't know, it would just make driving around a lot better. Because like I said before, driving that motorcycle is actually fun. Like, it controls really well. It doesn't feel right for a Metroid game driving around a big empty desert, but like using it in the dungeon area was actually pretty cool. I mean, you don't use it a lot. It's basically just a faster way to get around certain parts, and like you can't use it everywhere. In fact, most of the dungeon you can't even use it. It's basically just there's like certain main control rooms or whatever where that are linked by a big road, essentially, for this factory area thing. And then there's like certain spots in other dungeons where, in order to get back out to the main desert, well, I guess it's at the exit, you have to, you put the bike on a platform and then you run the wheels so it just rotates, and that helps to raise the platform, and then it brings the road out so that you can zoom out of the stage, that sort of thing. Beyond that, I'm not entirely sure how much it actually gets used, because I'm just not that far in the game yet. And considering the fact that I didn't get to play a lot over the weekend because I was mostly playing Final Fantasy VIII Remastered, I really only got... I played through the prologue and a little bit past that on Friday, and then it wasn't until sometime on Monday that I got back to playing Metroid Prime 4. So, yeah, I think that's the gist. I guess I'll mention one last thing. Something that I actually do really like is that the alternate beams that you get, which I've only gotten one of them so far, instead of it being, you use that instead of the power beam, it's actually instead of missiles. So like you can switch between those for the missile button, which is kind of nifty, because that's one thing I never really cared for with the previous Prime games, was having to switch beams all the time, because it's helpful to just be like, okay, I can fire the fire beam and then use the main beam without having to do a switch each time in order to do that. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, especially on the Wii version, where you could do the Wii remote and just hold a button and then transfer real quick. And it wasn't like a huge deal on the GameCube, but it's still just kind of like a nice touch. I think it's helpful, and it's looking like you might be able to do power missiles without having to hold down the charge beam and then fire it. I think you just hold down the missile button and then fire it, because when I got the upgrade for the fire beam, whatever it's called, plasma beam, maybe, I can't remember what it's called in this game. It's something different. But anyway, when I got the upgrade for that in this game, it just told me hold down R in order to charge it up for the more powerful version of the beam. So it's like, okay, cool, I'll take that. I'm hoping that's also the case with super missiles, but we'll find out. So, okay, yeah, that, I'm pretty sure that's everything I have to say, other than answering whatever questions you have.
All right. Oh man, wow. A lot. Where do I even begin? So, I guess first off, I'm very glad that the performance was just great and across the board. Getting solid 60 on the Switch 1, 120 frames per second on the Switch 2. Definitely great to hear that. Question I had, I don't know if you've heard anything about this, or if anyone has, or any third party has thought about this, is, are there any type of Joy-Con peripherals where you can like stick the Joy-Con in sort of like some sort of grip or something that feels more like a mouse that you've heard of?
I have seen some, and I contemplated looking into them, but honestly, I don't think the mouse controls are good enough to where it would really help. I mean, there's the potential it could, but especially now, since I'm planning to sell the Switch 2, I'm not going to bother with that. I mean, there's a chance in the future that I might consider it. Like whenever I get a Switch 2 OLED, because I'm going to guess that there's a very strong chance by the time the Switch 2 OLED comes around that I'll actually be willing to buy it. Because by that point, there'll probably be multiple games worth playing. But
yeah. And I mean, of course, there was that one presentation that was sometime earlier this year about like the whole Switch thing and being able to use an actual wired mouse with the Switch. I'm wondering like when whatever patch there is, or whatever Nintendo needs to do happens, where you can actually go ahead and just plug in any type of mouse in there, because that would be great.
Yeah,
just be able to do that. And I mean, especially if you use a mouse that has, multiple, buttons on there, then,
right.
that would definitely help out and be pretty cool, especially if you can configure the controls and map stuff. That would be nice. But, yeah, kind of a shame that they still haven't gotten support for mice yet, that end.
Yeah, I mean, I actually haven't tested it in this game, but I just know previously when I tried using a regular mouse on the Switch 2, it didn't work. So I'll have to actually plug in my mouse and see if it works, because if it does, that might actually be worth doing. But I'm kind of anticipating that it's just not going to work, and even that it's probably like you can use certain mice, but not every single one. Like it's not across the board, and it probably won't detect every button that's present. But I mean, if it is an option, I would probably play it. Probably when I was playing docked, I would try that out. Of course, the ideal would just be mouse and keyboard, because mouse and keyboard would be amazing for this game. At least all of the first-person parts. Driving parts would be a little more tricky, but I could easily switch over to Pro Controller or whatever, which I actually have used the Pro Controller. I was using the Switch 2 Pro Controller for playing docked, and then obviously in handheld, I'm using the Joy-Cons because they're attached. One thing I did forget to mention, and this is kind of a small thing, but it was a little bit annoying, is that for some reason they have the menu button tied to the minus button, which when you're doing it on the Pro Controller, that's not a problem because it's in a good spot, it's easy to press. But on the Joy-Cons, it's like right above, since it's right above the joystick, it's in just kind of an awkward spot where it's like I have to reach around to be able to grab it, and it's annoying because like my natural instinct is to press the plus button to bring up a menu or whatever, but they have the plus button is mapped to summoning the motorcycle, and you cannot switch which buttons. I mean, you can change the buttons for everything else, but you cannot change the menu button. It's like, I would much rather change some things around, especially because there's a couple buttons that are technically performing two functions, two buttons performing the same function. So you can either fire with the right trigger with ZR, or you can fire with A. You can jump with either the L button or with B. Now, and I jump with B because that's just more natural for me. I would use A for shooting if it wasn't for the fact that then I can't aim as easily, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely interesting to hear. And it's also interesting to know that there are the two different ways you can jump and shoot, so that's definitely cool that there's some sort of a variety, since first-person shooters on consoles usually use like the right trigger for shooting anyway. Although I probably would still just stick with the traditional A and B, since that's what I have been using for years outside of 3 with the Wii controls. Which, also out of curiosity, did you try experimenting with the Joy-Cons as far as just like with motion controls with see how that played?
Yeah, I mean I've been using motion controls ever since I switched off of mouse mode. I've been using motion controls, but it's not like the same as it is with the Wii or anything. It's basically kind of like a hybrid. I think that I'm pretty sure they don't have the option to do just like traditional motion controls more like the Wii. Instead, it's basically just the hybrid between using the joysticks and also being able to use the gyro for fine-tuning. Which, to me, that's better anyway. That's what they should have done for Prime Remastered, and they didn't, unfortunately. But the only thing is that it doesn't have the option to play with GameCube controls. So being able to aim can be a little more tricky. I mean, I guess technically if you just use the lock-on feature, it would probably work fine. But I like having the ability to independently aim, because there are definitely times where it is more tricky to do so. Plus it's just muscle memory. So, because it's been a long time since I played the GameCube version.
And so now I guess I just discussing, or after what I've been hearing about the different things changes, it's a bit disheartening to hear about some of these changes. And I mean, it seems like after Breath of the Wild, Nintendo wanted to get as many open worlds into some of their games as possible. I mean, some of them have definitely worked out well. I'd say, like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an open world type of game, but they did something to, I mean, I wouldn't call that open world, but they added sort of an open world to like Mario Kart World, where, you know, they have that big area you can just drive out between tracks, and now they have this big area you can just drive around. It's like, not everything needs to have an open world. I mean, sure, some games are good with open world, but you don't need to have that with every game. Like you said, Metroid's not about that. It's about going through different areas, exploration, finding new secrets, trying to see if you can possibly sequence break the game. You know, trying to like say, all right, I want to try to get this ability earlier on than, you know, I should. And I think for the Prime games, I think it's harder to do that. It's easier to do with like the 2D ones, but if possible, you probably could do that with the Prime games. But yeah, that's what the key thing about a Metroid game is. And, you know, backtracking, going back to like say, all right, I didn't have this ability before. I know I needed it this area, but I couldn't do it. But now I have the ability. I can go back, get the item I need, or, you know, just get these extra power-ups. But that sort of seems to be taken away, which is kind of really weird, to say the least. And I think, like you said, having that open world just hurts from that experience. I mean, like you said, it doesn't need to make sense that these different biomes are connected, because I mean, you could still probably technically have a type of hub area, just sort of like say, whatever alien race you're helping out, say there's just like some floating, I guess, station over the planet. It's like, all right, cool. Here are the areas you can go to. Here's a teleporter that will beam you straight down, and you can just go there and do it. And I mean, that's sort of like what you do with other Metroid games as well. Like for Fusion, for example, you have the main area, and then the different biomes that are built into the spaceship. You can go into there from the main control area. And somewhat to a degree, they have that in Prime too, but it's not really played out as much. As far as like that one place where you go to see the Luminos and stuff. But yeah, that it's just a weird design. And then having the different shrines, I'm like, that's, yeah, they really could have just kept everything more tightly knit. So that way it's like, all right, cool, I can go here. I might even be able to find a shortcut, because there are some shortcuts you have, at least, I mean, definitely in the 2D games, but also in the Prime games, that, you know, you might find a different elevator and say, all right, cool, I found this elevator, it'll take me back to this area, and, you know, I can, if I feel like coming back here, I don't have to go all the way around to the one elevator where I originally came from. I can just go here, come back around, and it's much faster. So yeah, that's definitely disheartening to hear, but and I guess another thing from Zelda that they kind of took then is the fact that when you're riding whatever horse you have in at least in Breath of the Wild, I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, so I can't speak on that, but they just have that one sort of ambient music that's playing throughout there, and it's sort of very small, and you know, you hear it, but it's not really coming out. And that's the thing. Another thing about Metroid is the music is a key factor in the games. You go into an area, you hear the music. It's not always gonna be the same thing. Sometimes it might be, you know, some quiet background music, but you can still hear it. And, you know, you might go into another area and it's like very pounding, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is a very tense area. Another area, you know, it might be a bit more laid back, it might be a bit more chill, but the music, you know, the music is there, you can hear it. So the fact that you have an area, especially an area that you're going to be constantly going back and forth between, why there's no music, or why the music is just barely audible, does not make any sense at all. I don't know what they were thinking about with the sound design there. And I mean, you could even argue and say, well, in the older games, specifically like 1 and I guess primarily 1, with, I think also with Super, with whenever you're going to like the elevator rooms, you hear the do 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 do. I mean, sure, you know, that's
right. Yeah.
not something, it's not like the same type of music as you hear when other areas, but at the same time, it's still something that is there and something that you can hear.
Yeah.
And, you know, it also sort of fits to a degree. You know, driving around open desert and not having anything to listen to is kind of just empty, kind of like the open areas, I guess, as a reflection of that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit disappointing to hear about that, and I really hope that you can actually unlock the music and be able to play the radio without having to buy a $30 peripheral, because otherwise, wow, and that's a whole new low to like do something like that in a Metroid game of all things. And I mean, that just hurts me on like another level there. But yeah. And I mean, of course, like you said, there's Miles, and from what I've seen, I almost feel like I owe the Federation Force from other M an apology. I mean, I never really actually hated the Federation Force crew, because I mean, at least when they were alive, they were competent. And I mean, of course, you know, there's Anthony, but I didn't despise him. Mm-hmm. But Miles just seems to take the cake. But at least I can say, well, then again, I would say at least it's not Federation Force, the 3DS game, but I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Start praising Federation Force. But yeah. Now, actually, I was curious, though, just because I know things changed back and forth between 1, 2, and 3, and so I don't know how it works in this game. Do your different beams have any type of ammo stock?
Yeah.
Sort of like with 2?
They do. It doesn't seem to be too egregious like it was. I felt like 2 was more annoying early on using them, because like they would run out of ammo pretty fast. Yeah. This one, it's not that bad. I mean, there's only been like one situation where I actually ran out of ammo. I mean, granted, I only have the 1 extra beam, but it's like a fight I got in actually earlier this evening, where there's like a bunch of these wolves surrounding you, and it basically like an endless amount of them that show up until a certain cutscene happens. But like if you use the fire beam on them, they die in 1 hit. But the problem is that you eventually run out of ammo, and they keep coming and coming and coming, and it's ridiculous. But yeah, that's the only time I've actually found myself running out of ammo for it. Otherwise, I really haven't had that issue. But it is kind of nice that the fire beam, for example, as expected, if you use it on regular ice enemies, it'll just vaporize them instantly, which is nice. One thing I do want to kind of know, because I don't know if I really made this entirely clear, most of the game actually has great music. Like all of the different biomes have really good music. Of course, you know, obviously I mentioned the viola theme that I absolutely love. And like, as far as I can tell, in general, there's plenty of music, and I've never had issues with not having music or having like the really low ambient kind of thing, like in the transition areas, like you had in Super Metroid, or like when you go to the save room, you know, it's always been like more of a quiet ambient kind of chill thing. And it actually kind of at the same time also fits like the vibe, because you're like, oh, it's a point where you could take a breath, especially if you're, you know, if you've been dealing with lots of annoying enemies and that sort of thing, or if it's been a while since you got a save room. But yeah, it's just the fact that you have this massive open area where you spend a bunch of time riding around, getting from biome to biome, and getting collectibles and that sort of thing, which of course is part of the requirement for getting 100%, and the fact that you don't have any music. And it, with something like Breath of the Wild, although it didn't have a ton of music, and in the open world most of the time it was quiet, you would still have occasion. I mean, like you'd be riding along, and then occasionally you just have like some piano notes pop up, and like some themes show up, or like you'd get near a town and it would start to play a theme, or like enemies would show up, or like one of the guardians would show up, and but then it's like playing that like great piano piece when they're getting ready to attack you. But this one doesn't have anything like that when you're in the open world. When you're in the desert, you just have nothing. You have this quote unquote theme, but you can't hear it over the sound of the motorcycle at all. And so it really hurts the experience, and it's such an annoyance to me. I was arguing with this. I mean, like, I guess discussing / arguing with this guy or gal, I don't know which, on YouTube, who was of course defending the fact that you have to either that you have to either unlock it by getting 100% completion, or you have to use the amiibo. And basically, like, their thing was like, if you're in Samus is in like a tense secret mission or whatever, and her pulling out the radio kind of breaks immersion anyway. I said, I agree, there shouldn't be a radio. There shouldn't need to be a radio. There should just be music playing by default. That should just be the way it is, but no. And yeah, it's just trying to, so much of this, when you hear the Nintendo fanboys in particular defending this, I mean, there are some people who genuinely doesn't bother them. But I think the majority of the people who are defending this, it's not that it doesn't bother them. It's that either they are such a Nintendo fanboy that they refuse to acknowledge that it bothers them, or they just don't, they're just so determined to justify their purchase in their mind that they will do whatever mental gymnastics they have to do to convince themselves that it's not that big of a deal. And I mean, technically, like, is it a big deal? No. But I would have a lot more respect for it if it wasn't for the fact that they make it possible to get music. It's just that you either have to get 100% completion, which means you have to spend all this time in the desert doing all these things that would be so much better with the music. Or you can spend $30 and get to do it right away. And it's like, I was hoping maybe by some chance I would just be able to use like my Smash Brothers series Samus amiibo, because I've had that one for years, just sitting on my shelf collecting dust. I try, if you don't have the Metroid Prime series amiibo, the other ones, it does basically nothing. It's like literally, it just plays a sound effect. What's the point? And it's just, this is egregious. Like, yes, their quality, they're well-made amiibo. Like, the quality of them has definitely improved since the original Smash Brothers line. Like, there's some really cool ones. And if you like having those collectible figurines, sure. But the thing is that after I bought a bunch of those in 2014 and 2015, I stopped buying them after a while, because it just got to a point where it's like, this is just a piece of plastic that's sitting on my shelf. The functionality isn't worth it. And to me, while the functionality of the Prime 4 amiibo, particularly the Samus one, is an actual like useful feature, the problem is that I don't want to spend $30 for a basic feature that should just be in the game without. There shouldn't be a radio. There should just be music playing in the desert. It doesn't even have to be the Viola theme. Like, if the Viola theme, or if it was just like, okay, you have a good musical theme playing in the desert, something that's, it doesn't even have to be like a banging track. It can just be like something simple and quiet, but still good, like something that's nice to listen to. And then have, if you want to do the radio thing as a separate thing, we have the option to change the tracks. It's like, okay, I would be totally fine with that. Because then it's something where it's not feeling like you're basically taking something completely out of the game that should just be a default feature, having actual music in a big open area, and charging people in order to be able to use it, or requiring that they 100% complete the game before they can use it, when it would have been useful to have that while they're working on 100% completing the game. Because while there is the possibility that I may replay the game in the future, particularly if they ever release 2 and 3 on the Switch and I'm able to just play through all the games again, the problem is that I don't want it to be like the only way I can enjoy this feature that would have been nice to have the first playthrough is to completely finish the game or spend an extra $30. It's just, it's not good. It's not worth it. It's not defensible. And the only way that you're defending it is, frankly, if you're a fanboy. I think that there are a very small minority of people who would defend it because it really doesn't bother them. But I think more people, they're telling themselves that it doesn't bother them because it makes them sleep better at night. Not, I'm convincing themselves that Nintendo is not ripping them off. So, I've said a lot about this game, and I'm just going to reiterate once again, despite my complaints with the game, I don't think the game is a waste of money. I don't think the game is bad. I don't think it is Metroid enough for a Metroid game, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of like how I pretty much came to the conclusion after finishing it. I don't think that Moonscars was really much of a Metroidvania. It was more Souls-like than Metroidvania, and it really wasn't Souls-like entirely either. But this one, like, it's still technically Metroid, and it has Samus, and it's not a bad game by any stretch. Like, I do enjoy what I played. It's just, it feels less like Metroid and more like Zelda. And while I like Zelda, I like Zelda to be Zelda, not Metroid to be Zelda. So, okay, I'm done. That's all I have to say.
One last question I have, just because I'm really just... The past of me wants to know, how soon is it until you see Sylux?
Well, you see him in the intro of the game, and then you pretty early on fight what's supposed to be Sylux. I mean, it's technically a spoiler, but I don't think anybody really cares all that much. You fight what you think it's Sylux you're fighting, but it's actually like a robot that's not actually Sylux. So, whatever.
and then I'm sorry, and then I guess sort of a follow-up question then is, does he transform or no?
Well, it depends on what you mean by transform.
I mean, I guess sort of like, is there a morph ball sort of mode that he has?
He did not do a morph ball thing, but he did turn into like a spinning tornado type thing.
And that's new.
And you have to use morph ball bombs to bomb his feet while he's speeding around and like zipping across the arena. That's the only way to get him out of that state, so you can actually attack him.
Okay. Well then, let's see. Did I have anything for? Oh yeah. So I did have one question for Final Fantasy VIII. Correct. I'm just trying to remember how this was handled. Was 8 bundled with 9, or was that with 7?
7.
As far as like the physical? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember which one that was. I was like, I can't remember.
Yeah, 9 got its own separate physical, and I have that as well.
Okay. And also, I guess another thing is, from what you can tell from playing them, were 7 and 9 also given the same treatment as far as a remaster, or just
no. 9 I feel like was in some ways kind of a better remaster, but it didn't actually, like, they didn't really update the character models. They basically just improved the resolution. but then I think that, I mean, they also added like speed up and I can't remember what other features. This one was a lot more bare bones, and I don't know that any of them really did anything with the frame rates. But I'm pretty sure that 7 probably still has a better frame rate than 8. And I'm not sure about 9, because it's been a while since I played that, so I couldn't tell you for sure.
Okay. That is all that I have.
All right. Well, we just spent almost 2 hours talking about that stuff, including, especially talking about Metroid Prime 4. But as far as our topics tonight, so the number one thing, I mean, I had already said this was going to be a longer show because of the fact that we have the Game Awards coming up. And so we have a couple of smaller topics, small-ish topics that we'll talk about. And we'll just kind of briefly touch on them. But then we're going to record the second half of the episode after the Game Awards. So we'll talk about all the big announcements that were shown there. So first of all, let's just quickly get into these 2 topics. First of all, I'm just going to mention briefly that it's been basically officially said, Jeff Keighley said that there's the future of Tomb Raider is going to be shown at the Game Awards. And as for what exactly that entails, we don't know for sure. I have some theories based on things I've read and just general ideas from that standpoint. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that we're getting something new, since it's, I mean, apart from the remasters of the original games 1, 2, 3, and then I think Angel of Darkness, Legend, and I don't remember what the other game is, but I guess what 6 is. It's definitely interesting that we're getting something new, since the last thing that was completely brand new was Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very skeptical about this, especially considering how they've handled Lara Croft in like the Netflix adaptation, and then also how they were trying to handle her with the board game that was being made, and even the fact that they were trying to disassociate her with the whole Tomb Raider thing. And I'm like, it's in the title, and you don't want her, and you're like, she's the game's literally called Tomb Raider, and yet you don't want her raiding tombs. And
yeah,
like, well, what is she supposed to do then? It's just, so I'm very skeptical as to like what or how they're going to handle it, and I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there'll be something and it will be fine, but I just don't know. I'm skeptical. I mean, we probably will hear something, but I don't know if it's going to be something that I think is going to be, I guess, not necessarily worthwhile, but something that will be, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be something that I would say, I will go and get this, essentially, just because, yeah. I mean, besides, I still have to finish, like, or even start, like, most of the other games anyway, so I wouldn't necessarily be in a rush to go ahead and start playing whatever the new game is. But yeah, that's essentially my basic early thoughts. Of course, things could change, but that's just what I see right now.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've been reading, it seems like the theory is that this may not even be about a game, but could just be about the Tomb Raider series that Amazon is doing, which is being produced and or written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's one of the most insufferable women on the planet that I've seen. She played the goddaughter of Indiana Jones in the latest Indiana Jones movie, and she was also the voice of the robot from Solo, a Star Wars movie, which I refuse to watch because of everything I heard about it. And she's just like one of those really obnoxious girl bosses, but she makes girl bosses seem tame by comparison because of how incredibly obnoxious, and I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, she's just awful. So she's writing it, and I think I can't remember, Sophie Turner, that's her name, who played Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones, is supposed to be playing Lara Croft in that. So I am very hesitant about that being even remotely good. I have zero faith in the TV show. The idea of a game I'm mixed on, because the reboot series that they did with Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider was pretty decent. I mean, I enjoyed both the first and second game. The third one I enjoyed enough, but it was a little bloated. And the main thing that I liked about it, though, was that it was Metroidvanias. And so they were, the first two games especially, were solid. And the third game was pretty good, but like I said, it was just really bloated. And it had a lot more like fetch quests and stuff in it and it just ended up being very tedious. I mean, I completed the game and I did 100%. I mean, not with all the achievements, but yeah, like it was an okay game. So if they do a new game, I want them to maintain the Metroidvania formula because that could make it good. I just don't have a whole lot of faith about what exactly they're planning to do beyond that. And so I need to see something and get an idea of who's putting it together and everything before I have any sort of real faith in the quality of the game. But I'll keep an open mind until I see otherwise. So. And I will make clear, I have not played any of the old Tomb Raider games. I do own the remasters of the first three games, and then a handful of other ones that I got through GOG as free games. But I haven't done more than play like a tiny bit of the remaster of the first game. So that's the extent of my experience with it. But I've always been interested in checking it out because I remember watching a friend play the original one on PS1 way back in the day. Way back then. It was such a long time ago. 30 years ago. I want to say. I'm not positive it was exactly 30 years ago, but it was definitely the mid-90s. I just don't remember the exact year. But, yeah. Anyway. All right. You want to cover the story about WB Games?
Sure thing. Now, if you have heard anything over this past week, it's that Netflix has they've definitely seemed to have solidified the fact that they have purchased Warner Brothers. They went and purchased, and they had an offer that they gave, and Warner Brothers accepted it, and so far it seems to be mostly solid from what I've seen. And I mean, even if you are subscribed to Netflix, then you've probably received an email saying that Warner Brothers is coming over to Netflix, essentially. And I mean, for right now, I think HBO Max is still being operated separately, but I think eventually they're going to try to bring Warner Brothers products over to Netflix and stuff like that. But as a result of that, what that would mean is that Warner Brothers Games is also going to be owned by Netflix. And as we know, Netflix has been trying to start dabbling into the gaming division. Some games have been recently this past year, like some older games but more popular, have been ported over to whatever thing they have set up. I don't know what it's called, but they've been doing that. But so that would mean that Netflix has ownership of those types of games. And so your Mortal Kombat, your Harry Potter, your Batman Arkham. I mean, I guess the latest thing though was Suicide Squad, but all that type of stuff they would own and be able to make their own types of games. Now, however, though, there was a sort of last minute bid that Paramount is actually trying to make a counter bid and say, "Whoa, we can pay more for you, Warner Brothers Discovery, if we buy you." So I'm not certain what's gonna happen there, but so far from what we know right now, Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. The ink might not necessarily be dry yet, but it has been signed at the very least. So unless something changes, Warner Brothers Discovery and Warner Brothers Games, more specifically, since this is a gaming podcast, is owned by Netflix. Nothing concrete has also been said yet. I know that even among different things I've seen, they're still trying to finalize some things and try to figure out how things will probably be managed. So Warner Brothers Games for right now will be still operating sort of, I guess you could say, independently. But I do have thoughts about what could happen in the mid to long term. But before I even share all that, what are your thoughts on this whole scenario?
This one's an interesting one. Apparently, before Netflix settled on buying Warner Brothers, they had also considered buying EA and Disney. And I mean, especially Disney, I mean, I guess their value has gone down quite a bit in recent years because of all the garbage they put out, but nevertheless, it's still just like, wow. But the idea of them buying Warner Brothers, I'm curious about whether or not this will completely go through, especially because from what I read, apparently Paramount, so I believe it was like Netflix was doing it for like 89 billion or something, and then Paramount was offering 108 billion for Warner Brothers. So I don't know from a contractual standpoint, legal and all that, whether or not they're at a point where they could still back out and then Paramount could do it instead. But regardless of any of that, with the reality that regardless of whether it's Netflix or Paramount, that Warner Brothers Games would be part of it, I definitely am not sure what to think about that. I mean, I don't think it's good to have more consolidation. I think that there's mostly on the other media side. I'm more concerned about the other media side, probably, honestly, than the video game side, because, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how much Warner Brothers Games can actually be any worse at the moment, because it's already in such a bad spot. I mean, they put out Suicide Squad, which, as far as we can tell, was pretty much just garbage. And, they haven't really had any solid games in a while. I mean, Gotham Knights is okay, but it's not a great game. And of course they closed I can't remember the name of the studio, but basically the Nemesis system is gone. And so nobody else can necessarily use it unless maybe that's something that just kind of gets released, which is possible. I heard something about maybe the idea of Judas, that game from Ken Levine, who made the BioShock games, that he potentially is going to use a similar system within Judas. But I haven't done much of any reading. I just kind of saw a headline about it. Honestly, I just don't know what to think. Like, I would like to think that maybe this would be the thing that could turn WB Games around to actually putting out good games again. Between WB Games and Rocksteady and everything, actually making quality games that honor the source material and give gamers what they actually want instead of the slop that they've been putting out. And maybe, revive something like that Wonder Woman game, for example, that was supposed to use the Nemesis system, or, whatever. I mean, just there's way too much that we really just don't know. And I'm not really sure what I think about it one way or the other. I haven't really had enough time to process it, I guess. And it's because of the fact that the Warner Brothers developed games have been so irrelevant to me since either Shadow of War or Arkham Knight. I'm not sure what to expect. But that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, so I was of a mixed mind when it came to this, and partially just because, sort of like what you said, it depended on the media that was being referenced to. Like, I think as far as with, and I think right now specifically regarding to Netflix, if their purchase goes through, I feel like that would be very detrimental in the long term, especially since Netflix is a more so streaming platform, and they're focused more so on subscriptions. That would, while they have put some stuff out physically, I feel like there would be a mass reduction in physical production. So like stuff like movies, shows that have been primarily on Warner Brothers, there might be a reduction there in that sense. And I mean, considering the fact that I believe there was like a study or something like that, or there's some article saying that I don't remember what percentage it is, but like some of the movies and stuff that are put on Netflix are mainly, the quality is the way it is because they expect people to put the shows or movies on as background noise, essentially. So it's like, I mean, granted, I'm not saying that there have been a Warner Brothers films that have been, saying like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever as of late. But I mean, I feel like that was in sense trying to water down the quality of their films and whatnot, unless they're mainly just trying to bank on older shows and stuff and just like get people to watch that stuff. And as far as the games that go, though, sort of like you said, it's like, well, can it really even get worse from what they've been doing? I mean, I feel like the last big thing that people liked would have been Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
But, other than that, though, they haven't really done anything in more recent memory that has been, successful. I mean, they have the Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight.
Oh, that's right.
Which I think is definitely has potential. They just can't mess it up.
Right.
But I mean, and I feel like part of the reason I was saying like short-term, long-term stuff is the fact that because stuff is still being finalized, I think whatever Warner Brothers Games is doing right now with what games they have in their pipeline are going to be unaffected at all. So like Lego Batman Legacy, that'll come out, that'll be its thing and whatnot. However, in the long term, would Netflix feel like, well, we're going to just start having exclusive games from WB Games on whatever thing they have going on, I don't know, whatever it's called, or something like that. I mean, they still might obviously put out games on other platforms because it makes sense financially to do so. But could they decide, hey, we're just going to make some games exclusive on our platform so that way more people come to us? Might happen, might not happen, but that's something that crossed my mind. But like I said before, considering that they haven't been doing too much as of late anyway, I wouldn't be necessarily too concerned about what happens. I'm like, oh, this is bad, but at the same time, like, I really don't care too much though. But I just like, I don't like this. Like you said, the consolidation is horrible. but I won't necessarily cry too much over it.
Yeah.
Essentially. But Paramount, I really have no idea what to even expect as far as with the gaming. If they happen to buy Warner Brothers, like, I have no idea what to expect because they don't even handle games.
Right.
So I don't know what to expect out from that.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess at this point, we are going to we're going to come back and record the rest of the episode after we have watched the Game Awards and all the announcements there, and then we'll talk about our highlights and or lowlights. So we'll be back in a little way. For you, it'll be like instantaneous. All right, so the Game Awards happened earlier today, and wow. So it's late right now because the Game Awards just ended, and it's, it was a long show. But we're gonna try to get through these the things that stood out to us. I took notes throughout, and there was definitely some surprises there, but not really good surprises. So, as usual, let's just go back and forth with our various things that popped up, and why don't you start us off?
Yeah. So this was a disappointment, and mainly because it's been so long, too long since we've seen anything. I mean, of course, there's Death Stranding 2 that's supposed to be coming, but it's been so long since we've seen anything from Sony as far as with like PC stuff. And so the fact that we saw the Sony logo and stuff and it popped up, and it was like, all right, another game coming. And it wasn't even gonna be like Wolverine or anything like that. And so when I saw that, I was like, all right, we got a new game from Sony. Let's see what it is. And then I was like, wait a second, I know what this is. This is, don't tell me this is what I think it is. The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 HD Remastered Final Mix. How many times are you going to release this game, Sony? All right, it wasn't bad. It was bad enough that you ported it over. Fine, you did that. You gave a remake. Fine, you did that. You decided to remake it. Fine, do that. But now you're going to come out again and bundle it, and then say it's a new package thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, how many times are you gonna put this game out? Haven't we suffered enough? You could have given us Bloodborne, and you gave us this. I don't get it. I don't know why. I mean, I guess they still need to fund whatever new projects they have, but can't you just fund something else? Remaster something else for us instead of doing this again and again. I don't know.
Yeah, that one definitely was more of a kind of thing. I mean, in one sense, it didn't surprise me at all, because it's like, okay, they're releasing The Last of Us again as a bundle again. But the funniest part about it is that it's $200 for the bundle. It now does 8K 24 frames per second, so it's extra cinematic. And on top of that, I guess the thing that actually surprised me, that did surprise me about it, was the fact they were calling it Final Mix. It's like, what is this, Kingdom Hearts? I was expecting more like director's cut, but for some reason, Final Mix is apparently the direction they decided to go. Granted, they did give some of the characters blue hair, so maybe that's why they decided to call it Final Mix. Yeah, they gave a couple characters blue hair. Ellie has like a single stripe of blue in her hair now, and then Abby, she had a full head of blue hair. So yeah, it's I guess that's something that they added in order to make it more worth the extra money, the limited edition blue hair. And Um, yeah, that's it is a shame to not see any of the other Sony stuff, especially Death Stranding 2. You know, like I really was expecting that, but I guess that'll probably just be something that they announce separately because they've done that before. Sometimes, you know, they don't want to make the fanboys angry, so they announce that separately. But yeah, so one of the things that was kind of a mixed announcement, we did get announcements of Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remasters. But even though they're full remasters like what they did with Metroid Prime, they also added in NPCs similar to what they have in Metroid Prime 4, who are there to tell you what to do next. And they also added a desert to both games to traverse across, except the fact that you don't have a motorcycle in the desert. They also added some key functionality, which is locked behind Amiibo. So there's a separate Amiibo for Prime 2 and a separate one for Prime 3. Prime 2, you have to have the Amiibo in order to unlock the light suit. Which for those who haven't played Prime 2, that is the one that makes you immune to the damage from the Dark World. And normally you get it through regular progression in game, but in this case, you actually, when you get the opportunity to pick it up, it says please scan the Amiibo. And if you fail to do that, then you have to just complete the rest of the game with just the dark suit. And so then, but you can unlock it. You can still unlock the light suit by getting 100% completion in the game. And apparently that's possible without actually having the light suit. So, okay. I mean, like I wanted to have Prime 2 and Prime 3, but I certainly didn't want it to lock a key gameplay portion behind that, especially because when you get that light suit, it's like it makes it so much, it's like a big sigh of relief. The dark suit helped a lot, but the light suit just like, now you can traverse without damage dealing with that. And yeah, now they're locked behind an Amiibo. But Prime 3, the Amiibo is locked behind, locks out the Hyper Beam. So you can't actually use that at all. It's been a while since I played Prime 3, but I seem to remember that there are certain things that you can't actually complete without the Hyper Beam, if I remember correctly. I mean, I know like when you're using it in combat normally, for the most part, you don't have to use it. It's just an optional thing. But yeah, so they locked the Hyper Beam behind the Amiibo, and similar to what they did with what they're doing with Prime 2, you can unlock it by getting 100% completion. Even though I'm pretty sure there are certain things that you're supposed to get using the Hyper Beam, if I remember correctly. Once again, it's been a while, so maybe they changed something about that. But I mean, on the plus side, on the Switch 2, you can get 1080p 120 frames per second on both games, or 4K 60. And of course, obviously, handheld mode, it's 720p 120 or 1080p 60. So it's not quite what we were hoping for. It looks like probably the Switch 1 version, I mean, still has the same Amiibo issue. So yeah, really, there's not much benefit other than the fact that you have access to the game now. Games on Switch.
Yeah, that was a very what were they thinking moment,
Yeah,
because
right?
people have wanted 2 and 3, and I guess it's just this whole monkey's paw situation where we got 2 and 3, but not exactly how we imagined we were going to get it.
Yeah.
And I mean, now the one thing that I'm really scared about is because they showed the open world section for the light world, which, fine, it's the desert area, whatever. I'm concerned what's going to be like when you're in the dark world.
Right?
Because because like you said, you don't have the motorcycle, so
Right.
you can't be driving around. You have to walk. That also means you have to walk in the dark world to get to each area, while also taking damage because it's the dark world.
Yep.
And you have to go to each area, which just I feel like they left that out on purpose because it's just very painful. And if they make it like the Torvis Bog world, if they make it like that, where it's just like essentially just a swamp area and it's the dark world, I'm just like, well. Someone call Miyazaki, because he's got a contender for swamp area of nightmares, because that's just going to ruin my day. And like you said, once you get the light suit in the original GameCube version, it made such a difference.
Right.
And you honestly, and I think even essentially, unless they add in special light crystals here and there, after you get that point, there aren't any other light crystals at all.
Yeah.
Which means you essentially have to be running straight to the bosses, or at least especially with the final boss. You have to run straight there and quickly take him out, because you're constantly losing your health the entire time otherwise. So it's either pay the $30 for the amiibo and you get to live, or guess you get to die, and or try to 100% the game, then you have the privilege to use the light suit.
But you still have to progress to get to the point of being able to get the light suit.
Of course.
Yeah.
Which, what were they thinking? And like you said, with the Hyper Beam, there are specific times where you actually do need to use it. But additionally, not only that, but once you get near the end of the game, it is literally required to progress through the game, especially once you're in the final area, because you are constantly in hyper mode, which means you have to discharge all the Phazon out of your body. And how do you discharge it? Hyper Beam. Oh, what's that? You need the amiibo? Guess you're gonna die of Phazon poisoning. Oh my goodness. So yeah, again, pay the $30, die of Phazon poisoning otherwise. So yeah, you're gonna be dying either way in these games unless you pay out an extra $30, which, again, this is just such a monkey's paw, because it's like, I wish we had Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered. Here you go, buddy, with the Prime 4 Touch added to it. Lovely. Thank you,
Yeah,
Nintendo.
the worst part is that you have to buy... You can't use the Prime 2 version of Samus for Prime 3 or vice versa. You have to have the specific ones for those specific games in order to use them. And then the rest of them, all they do is give you a little sound effect when you scan them.
I don't know. This is not what we wanted. We just wanted it to be like Prime 1. Why do you have to do it like this?
Yeah, and the worst part about this is that I've looked to see how Nintendo fanboys are reacting to this, and they are, of course, praising it and saying, well, you just need to get good. You just need to get good. You play Dark Souls. You just need to get good.
That's not what the first game, the other two games were like. That's not what I was like.
Real quick, I just want to note, because it's I need to share the video with you. So the developers for Another Crab's Treasure, I came across this video a while back, and they were this is not from the Game Awards, of course. This is completely separate, but they had put out a video where they said they had a Dark Souls mode for Another Crab's Treasure, where it was like dark and depressing, and the entire level was a poison swamp, and they even had On Orlando in there. It turns out it was an April Fool's video, but oh man, it was hilarious. I was like, oh, if this mode really exists, I want it. I want to check it out. I'll have to share that video with you. But anyway, yeah. All right. What was the next thing that stood out to you from the Game Awards?
So there was one announcement, and I initially was just disregarding this because I was like, I really don't care. It was Pokemon, and initially I was like, all right, Pokemon, because you saw, little Pokemon, company sign, oh, Pika Pika. And then next thing you know, you see, of course, a few Pokemon on the screen, and then one of them picks up a gun, and I'm like, wait, what? And then it was announced in that trailer that first off, that Pokemon company was going to drop the lawsuit against Pocket Pair. And not only that, but they are collaborating with Pocket Pair and having a Power World Pokemon crossover. And I thought, are you insane? This is actually happening. Like, that was very unexpected at all. So, next year when the Power World 1.0 comes out, there will actually be a crossover between Power World and Pokemon. So you will actually have Pokemon appearing in Power World. And you'll get to have your Blastoise with a bazooka. You'll get to have your Charmander with a flamethrower. Like, wow, that is exceptional. And I did not expect to have that type of news drop right there. So I guess that's what Jason Schreier actually was trying to hint about, a secret being kept. Wow, that was very surprising. And I mean, bravo for getting that done, lawsuit being dropped, and to make amends, having this crossover. So good job. And I look forward to playing this when version 1.0 releases.
All right, now, one thing to be clear about that, though, is that when Jason Schreier said that there was a secret being kept, this was separate. This was a separate secret from the thing about that, like, teaser statue thing that was in, was that California? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, point is that these are two separate announcements. And, of course, before I get to what the actual announcement was for that, I will just say, yeah, the whole thing with Pokemon and Power World, just like, wow, that's very surprising that that's actually happening. Because really, I just expected that they were going to continue being as petty as possible. But hey, if they worked something out, sure, that's great. Maybe they can get some tips on how to actually make a not broken game. But anyway, so that special teaser, the mystery game, was actually revealed. Which, I mean, of course, obviously we knew something would be revealed. There was no question about that because it was teased. But it was actually teasing a brand new Dark Souls. However, the new Dark Souls has a modern protagonist who's constantly talking to themselves, a la the fake video that one guy put out a while back that we watched that was excruciatingly painful. It's doing one thing that journalists are really praising, and that is it is including a story mode difficulty. And not only does it make it so that the bosses have much lower health, you hit a lot harder, and you don't have to worry about losing your souls, but also it, instead of having the environmental storytelling that's typical in a Dark Souls game, it actually has the protagonist, the now not silent, very talkative modern protagonist. I'm sorry, I just had something come up in my mind from that fake video that the guy put out. Did I just light that fire with my mind? But no, that wasn't actually in this. But the protagonist for this new Dark Souls game is going to be narrating the story, every bit of lore as it comes up, so that there can be no doubt that people understand what the actual story is of the game. So anytime you pick up an item that has lore attached to it, which is basically every item in a Dark Souls game, the protagonist will explain exactly what that item is talking about and explain to you verbatim how it connects to the overall story. I don't think it's going to be quite like this is connected to this is connected to this, but it's more like they're just going to essentially read off the description of each item and say, you know, I bet that's related to this. You know, essentially like that. But regardless, it definitely has me very concerned. Well, not just concerned. As far as I'm concerned, this isn't Dark Souls. But it's like, why? Why would you do this? Why? Why would you ruin Dark Souls this way? Like, that fake video, Dark Souls with a modern protagonist, it was supposed to be a joke. It was not supposed to be a blueprint for the next Dark Souls game. Did I just light that fire with my mind? That thing was so painful. And, I mean, the little bit that they showed of the teaser was very painful, but I still think the other one was more painful. I'm just not, mostly because of how precious Dark Souls Remastered is to me. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that was... I don't know what they were doing there with that. I mean, again, sort of like what we were saying before, it's a whole monkey's paw situation where we wished for something and we got it revived, but it's just this completely decomposed, defiled corpse instead of what we wanted. And I mean, the fact that you could clearly see in the sort of like small, I guess, gameplay segment they had the not yellow paint, you know, trying to show players where to go, because that definitely was a thing in Dark Souls. You know, definitely had you know, special markers saying, oh, you should go this way. And I'm like, why? Part of Dark Souls was just the exploration. I mean, sure, other players, if you were playing online, would have markers, you know, with the bloodstains saying, like, or not bloodstains, but with the messages saying, hey, go this way, or hey, secret passage this way, or something, or jump down here.
Or
now,
woman required
they were
ahead.
trolling you. Yeah. Sometimes they were trolling you, but sometimes they were actually trying to help you. But that's if you chose to read the messages. Now, you see not yellow paints, obviously trying to show you where to go and what to do. And I'm just thinking to myself, no. And like you said, the fact that that enemies have, or bosses, I should say, have less health, deal less damage, and you do more damage, I'm like, all right, so let's go back and remember what Dark Souls was about again. Was it about having bosses that were easy to beat, or was it about persevering, about struggling and trying to overcome the challenges in order to win? Like, I don't remember this being in Dark Souls. So yeah, like you said, and I mean, of course, the talkative main character, which definitely was a thing. And I mean, good grief, they really they if they were going to do this, you know, I probably would have been like, all right, that's fine, you can go back to sleep, Dark Souls, we'll be fine without you. But we're getting this, and I'm just like, oh, this is not good. And they're probably going to charge $70 for this too. Oh, that's going to make it worse. Yeah, I might have to skip this one just because I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
No. I respect myself too much.
Yeah, we have plenty of Souls-likes to play otherwise, and as far as we're concerned, Dark Souls ended with 3.
Indeed.
All right, what's the next one for you?
This one, I thought we might hear something about this, but I wasn't entirely certain. That was actually Expedition 33 related, and it actually is not the update that was mentioned, but this is more so like a side expansion that was for Expedition 33 expansion pass, or I guess expansion pass Expedition 60, where you sort of replay as Expedition 60 as they were going to the monolith here. And so it was very it was just very hilarious watching it happen, especially since you're not like, the base expedition, you are just pure muscle, you and your teammates, and you're just going around suplexing Nevrons, just grappling with them, and just that it looked hilarious, but it was beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny too, just like how when you're doing the parries, they're not actually doing any type of movement. They're just standing there with their pecs and just like
flexing. Just flexing.
Yes. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. So, I think this is definitely be a day one purchase for me. And I mean, sure, we know everything that happens, but at the same time, being able to relive these glorious moments of pure muscle is just chef's kiss. And so, well done, Sandfall, for surprising us with this. And I cannot wait to play this magnificent expansion.
Yeah, and thankfully it's not accessible until after you finish Act 2, which makes sense because it would be major spoiler for some stuff with the way the expedition ends. But because I mean, obviously we know Expedition 60 ends because Expedition 33 is here. So yeah, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think one of these days I'm probably just gonna have to suck it up and continue New Game Plus at the very least. I mean, someday I probably will replay the game from scratch, but with all the time I put in, it's kind of like, I don't know if I really want to restart the whole thing. Be a lot faster to get there just doing New Game Plus and then enjoy the new content. So that'll be pretty cool. Something that's not so cool. So as we talked about when we recorded earlier this week, the future of Tomb Raider was indeed revealed. So we already knew, some very basic stuff about the Amazon show, who was going to star in it, who was producing or writing it. But they revealed that there is also a game coming, and it is, of course, not a Metroidvania, which, I wasn't really expecting it to be, but it's not going to be a Metroidvania. They revealed Lara Croft's look, which is not going to be the same as the show. It's actually going to be voiced, mocapped, and what's the word I'm looking for? Starring Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So that already is bad. Both of them will follow the same story, though, with one of them taking place before the other, but they're both following essentially the same thing, and that is that they're going to be facing against a secret organization known simply as the Patriarchy, who seeks to gather all the world's greatest artifacts for taking over the minds of all people. And their evil leader, surprise, surprise, has orange skin and a blonde comb over. No tombs were shown in the trailers, but the creators have promised that there will be at least one in both. So it wasn't really made clear exactly like which one takes place first, but I'm guessing that probably the show takes place first, and then the game takes place after that. I don't know how they're going to deal with the continuity of having two completely different Lauras following a similar story, or one following the other. I don't know exactly how all that works, but regardless, this is I almost forgot to mention the fact that the gameplay is the style of The Last of Us. So it is, yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily have high hopes for this game anyway, but now it's just like my interest has dropped to 0.
Yeah. I mean, I really, it also again makes me wish that like, if they just in the show, which I definitely was not interested in at all, that would be fine. But the fact they're making a game and it's following the same sort of principle and idea, I mean, you really are just trying to not be subtle with your writing at all. And I mean, it's like, okay, I'm not saying that the Tomb Raider games had great, they had great depth to them, but they were serviceable. They did what they were supposed to do. They told a story, a decent story. They did a good job with what they did, and you went on an adventure. What's this here? I feel like this is just being preached to. They're getting on their soapbox, and also sort of like to, I guess, tie into piggyback off what you said about the gameplay. Yes, while the reboot trilogy gameplay is different from the original games, how do you change the style of gameplay again with this? It's like, okay, we have adventure game. Okay, now we have sort of the Metroidvania-ish game. Now we have Last of Us. It's like, how do you jump between those different styles of gameplay? I mean, why? And I mean, also, the way, granted, it was just a little bit of gameplay. We didn't get it too much of it, but the way it was being portrayed was like, okay, that you're barely doing any of the types of stuff that Laura normally does. And I was just so confused. And again, like we talked about the other day, the game's called Tomb Raider. Why do you only promise at least one tomb in both, across both? Like, you should have a bare minimum. I mean, that was one of the I believe the criticisms that the first game, or at least the first reboot, had, was the fact that there weren't that many tombs.
Yeah.
That was one of the criticisms that the game had. Now you're going to reduce the number of tombs for this Tomb Raider game. Why are you doing this? You are completely butchering the character and the franchise because you want to own the patriarchy, as I mean, in this case it's gonna be literally, because that's the enemy that you're facing here. So, oh my goodness, this is
and the orange man is bad.
I'm sorry, I forgot, and that too. So this obviously is going to be a complete pass from me. I'm completely fine with, like I said, with just going back, playing through the original games, playing through the rest of the reboot trilogy. And even there were a couple of not side games, you could say, that were sort of like a dungeon crawler-esque type of games. That's something I think I have a couple of them. Haven't played those yet.
Yeah.
I'll play those games. Whatever they're doing over here with this here, that's fine. You can keep that. Although it's still weird that they only say there are going to be at least one tombs, and yet this game's still called Tomb Raider.
Well, yeah, it's tomb singular. Well, I'm calling it now. The one tomb is going to be the tomb of the patriarchy, the death of the patriarchy, and they have a tomb that she'll like all of the patriarchy will end up in the tomb, and then she'll raid that tomb to grab all their valuables or whatever stuff they stole, so that she can return them to their original cultures, all while lecturing them even though they're already dead.
Yes, even though they're dead, she still feels like she has the need to tell them that they've done something wrong.
Yep.
And just like, all right,
yeah,
they're dead. What do you expect them to say here?
All right, I only have one last thing, but how many more do you have?
I just had one last thing myself, actually.
All right, go for it.
All right, and this one actually came from Valve, and I was a bit surprised. Well, I mean, I think everyone was surprised to see this. So we saw a trailer. We saw, of course, the Valve logo, and at first, we see what looked like Portal, and I'm like, what? Portal? And then, the gameplay changed, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is Half-Life. Okay, we know Half-Life 3, is rumored to be coming. And they're like, whoa, it changed again. Wait, Team Fortress? What's going on here? And then it changed, and all the perspectives changed into 2D platform. And I'm like, wait a second. And then they showed the title, Valve Orange Arena Rumble, which is a Smash clone, you could say, of all of like the different Valve characters. So you have, of course, Gordon Freeman. You know, he's got his crowbar. He's using that. You've got Shell with her portal gun, which was very interesting the way you could use that. And then you have the different characters from Team Fortress 2, like Soldier, like Scout, like the Engineer, you know, Medic. And so you have all these characters going around, and and then I mean, even you have other characters appearing as well. But I have to admit, I am somewhat intrigued by that.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that it's gonna be day one for me, although funny enough, it is going to be day one. It's gonna be a launch title for the Steam machine, so you know that's gonna be there, and I'm just like, that's pretty cool. But yeah, the Orange Arena Rumble, I was not expecting this, but Valve is full of surprises.
Yeah, that one definitely had me very intrigued. I mean, I haven't been super interested in that type of game as much since Smash Brothers, but if I was going to play, you know, that type of arcadey fighting game, I would want it to be like Smash Brothers anyway. The only other 3D or the only other fighter like that I really enjoyed, which I mean wasn't really the same, but it was an arena fighter kind of game, was Dissidia. But this one just, I mean, of course, it's very over the top and everything, so it looks like it could be very entertaining to play, and I will check it out for sure. The one thing about this, though, is I think this pretty much confirms that Half-Life 3 is not real, because all of the different things that had come through that had been like updated in the database and everything else for Source 2 showed up in this game. Like every single thing that showed up in the trailer, and it basically, like, I think Valve was doing it intentionally to show the people who kept saying Half-Life 3 is coming that this is what you're actually going to see, basically saying you guys were wrong. And this is how we're showing you where you were wrong. So I'm sure that the leakers are going to have an interesting time going through all this stuff, and yeah, it is quite a sight to behold. All right, my last thing is really just about the surprising upset, because Expedition 33 actually didn't win anything. It was really surprising, and the most shocking thing was that the winner of literally every category, including Best Sports Racing and Best Family Game, was Death Stranding 2. I mean, I'm sure it's a solid game, but I'm trying to figure out how it... I guess there is some, like, riding vehicles and stuff to where you could kind of count it as a racing type game in sections. And there's... I don't... Well, oh, I know why it's being called Best Family Game. It's because of the fact that... because Sam is raising a baby. And so that's why it's being called the Best Family Game. That's the justification for it. Because I mean, like, they didn't explain why it got the award. They're just acting like, oh, this is obvious. And, you know, I mean, obviously Kojima is buddies with Jeff Keighley, but I didn't really think that he had quite that much pull. So it was pretty shocking. I mean, as we've said in the past, the Game Awards don't really matter. It's more about the reveals than anything else, at least when there's good ones. But you'll find like an occasional good nugget here and there, and the actual awards don't matter much apart from maybe it being something where it sells more copies of those games. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I also, like you said, it doesn't matter, but at the same time, I'm like, Expedition 33 was robbed. I mean, it didn't win anything. I didn't know. And I mean, like you said, I've really failed to grasp how they got through the mental gymnastics with giving Death Stranding to, family game of the year. But like you said, I guess somehow they justified it by saying, oh, you get to raise a baby, fatherhood's important, which, yeah, fatherhood's important, but that's not exactly what I would just, automatically say it's a family game.
Right.
I mean, what do I know? I'm not a game designer. So, and also I don't host a game award show. So
right.
What do I know about these types of things? This obviously is for people much wiser than me, but, yeah,
well, it's like Jafar's philosophy. The golden rule is whoever has the gold makes the rules. And Jeff Keighley has the gold. He's very wealthy, so he gets to make the rules in this situation.
Indeed. But I mean, good. Congrats to Kojima for having a full clean sweep at the awards. I hope that maybe. Well, since the expansion for Elden Ring was nominated, maybe Expedition 60 might, win something.
Maybe.
When that releases.
Yeah, it'll be nominated for the Game of the Year, like Elden Ring. What was the expansion called?
Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yes, like Shadow of the Erdtree was nominated last year. All right. Well, in case it wasn't obvious, obviously those were all fake stuff, as has been our tradition for the last couple of years. So we are going to separately watch the Game Awards, but obviously it won't be covered until next week's episode, and we'll talk about the real announcements then. But it's always kind of fun to do. Was thinking, did we not do it last year? Because I didn't have any of mine written down in our show notes, but then I looked at the title of the episode, which was Half-Life 358 over 2 days. And so it's like, yes, we did have it. But yeah, so good stuff. All right. Well, it's late, of course. So let's work on closing out here. So recommendations and dissuasions. Start us off.
All right. My recommendation is going to be to read the novel A Christmas Carol. That's something that I try to do every winter, every December, just because I'm like, it's not long. You could probably get through it in maybe 1 or 2 reads, and it's nice to go back to the original source material and just read through that, just to get that original feeling experience. So I definitely recommend it. It's definitely a good read, and yeah, classic.
All right. Well, I have a few recommendations. First of all, if you have a Switch 2, I recommend playing Metroid Prime 4 at 120 frames per second. Play it in that mode. It may be different if you are running on a 4K display, but unless you're using a monitor, most likely you don't have 120 hertz, in which case then it'd be obvious you just do 4K 60. But if you have, especially if you have either a 1080p or 1440p screen, as long as you have the high enough refresh rate, definitely do the 120 FPS mode, because it's very smooth and it runs really well, looks good too. So it's a positive experience. Couple other things regarding Metroid Prime 4. First of all, if you are annoyed about the tutorials and everything, the constant chatter from the NPCs as mentioned and everything else, go ahead and turn down the voice volume, and also turn off tutorials, or at least turn them off between like getting tips on new stuff, because they can be pretty much constant if you don't have it turned off, and it'll give you a much better experience. I'm trying to find stuff. Oh yes. Whenever you, once again, Metroid Prime 4, whenever you fight the boss Zelios, that's with an X, which is the one that was footage for that was in this episode, fire regular shots rather than using charged shots, because it's much easier to hit the core of the boss if you're just firing those shots, and the health will go down a lot faster that way. Charged shots just take a little bit too long to get lined up properly and everything. So there's that. The last thing for my recommendations is try to be open-minded when it comes to playing games, particularly ones that people are hating on. I mean, unless it was something you just weren't interested in the first place, it's a good idea to just go into a game with as much of an open mind as possible, because with Metroid Prime 4, like, it's not perfect. There's definitely lots of things to criticize, and I don't think it's very good as a... I mean, it's a very good Metroid game, but that doesn't mean it's not a good game. I still think it's worth playing. I wouldn't necessarily say... I don't think anyone should go out and buy a Switch 2 to play it. But, like, if you already have a Switch 1 and you like Metroid games, you liked the Metroid Prime games, or you like Zelda games, you know, you could certainly play this game. It's solid, and I think that it's like... It's the first game I've played on Switch 2 where I felt like this is a reason to... I mean, this is a game that's worth playing on Switch 2. Whereas everything else... With the... I should say, everything else I've tried to play that I did... that I hadn't... Or I'm sorry. If I hadn't already played things like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, I would want to play them on Switch 2, but because I already played them, I just haven't been as interested, and so there just hasn't really been anything that's made me want to play on the Switch 2. This game certainly does make me want to play on the Switch 2, but, and I mean, I think it's worth playing on Switch 2, but I also would say, if you don't have a Switch 2, I wouldn't get a Switch 2 to play this one game. Or, you know, I mean, unless you have a bunch of other games, I still just don't really recommend the Switch 2 in general. But I'm still enjoying playing it here, and but I think I would still have a good time playing it on the regular Switch if I didn't still have the Switch 2, which I probably won't have significantly longer. I just don't know exactly when, because I need to list it sometime soon, and maybe I'll be able to sell it before Christmas. I did have one potential buyer, but they... Yeah, I already mentioned that they backed out, that they weren't interested after all, or they changed their mind, whatever. But yeah, that's what I have for recommendations. Okay. All right, dissuasions.
Dissuasion is sort of like what you said earlier, and I mentioned this last year, but I feel like it's always something good to bring up. Don't take the Game Awards show so seriously. Yes. Unless, of course, Expedition 33 loses. No, I'm just joking. But don't take it seriously. You know, it doesn't change the way you feel about a game. You know, if you've played a game and you really loved it, that's great. The game winning or losing the award show is not going to change how you felt about the game as you played it. So if you like the game, continue to like it. Really, like you said, it's really just the Game Awards show is just good for having announcements. That's really the only reason why we would really want to watch it. It's just because of the announcements of games that will come in the future. Otherwise, you know, it's not really going to impact us one way or another, because for one thing, we're not getting the, you know, it's not like it's going to change the way the games we played were experienced. You know, there's still going to be great games that we enjoyed one way or another. So it winning or losing won't matter. So just don't take it so seriously. But yeah, that's all I got.
Agreed. Let's see here. Sorry, finding my things. First of all, I'm going to say, if you are interested in playing a game, don't let the opinions of others around you, especially when a lot of times the complaints are relatively small things, don't let that affect your desire to play a game. And unless you're just like, if you've been on the fence for a while and then you decide, okay, I'm not going to play it because of all this stuff I've heard, you shouldn't let that necessarily prevent you from trying something out. Especially because it's never good to be in a position where like you want to play a game and then you hear a bunch of negative stuff and you're just afraid to try it because like you think this person who, this YouTuber or whatever who hates the game is going to think less of you when they don't even know you exist. Just don't let that impact whether or not you decide to play a game. I think it's still a good idea to just, if you're interested in a game, check it out. And if you want to wait, then wait too. That can be worthwhile. But I think that more of us would benefit from that than not. Now, I do think that there are situations where it's worth, taking seriously what other people say, like especially when it comes to crucial story things. Like if I hadn't heard everything about Spider-Man 2, I would have definitely bought it. And once I heard the nonsense I heard, I was like, okay, I'm not buying this game anymore. I'm not interested. I'm no longer interested. And I haven't wavered on that because the story was just so egregious what they did to where I'm like, I'm not going to play it. But anyway, getting back to dissuasions, my second dissuasion, my last one is don't use mouse mode in Metroid Prime 4. It's not worth it. It's so uncomfortable. It doesn't control nearly as well as the other options, and it just feels kind of like it was a good idea, but it feels kind of half-baked. And I think really the major problem is just the Joy-Con as a mouse just isn't great, at least not if you have big hands. I don't know if any regular mice would work, and if there are regular mice that work, that might be different. I might have a different opinion whenever I get to test that out, but as far as I know, it's limited to the Joy-Con, and that's not worth using. So that's what I got. All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. As I said before, this Friday at 7, maybe 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be live streaming the Batman Arkham Origins playthrough. So we'll see how long that goes. I'll be going on through there until I either die or beat the game. So we'll see what happens first. No new videos have come out yet. I might decide to still work on something. I don't know. Chances are I might not, just because I want to get stuff ready for Friday. But yeah, there's that. And then there's my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No new content there either, but I do still have a couple ideas that are in the pipeline. But yeah, that's everything.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, in my case, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at The Frozen Gamer 87. I haven't put anything out new in a while, but I'm hoping over Christmas break to get a couple things recorded and start getting some stuff up that was promised a while back and just I haven't gotten to yet. So that's the goal, and there's a small chance that I'll be streaming the Game Awards, although considering this doesn't come out until after the Game Awards anyway, I guess it wouldn't really make a difference. So you can check my channel and see if I streamed it by the time you hear this, and if you're curious about my reactions to anything, but I honestly haven't decided what I'm doing one way or the other. So we will play it by ear, see what happens, and go from there. There is the YouTube channel for the podcast, also a Rumble channel. And that's on YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can find it easily enough under the Orange Box Podcast. The video version of the podcast goes up at Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time every week, barring any technical issues. And the audio-only version goes live on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, once again, barring any technical issues. Lastly, I do have a YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. I haven't put anything up new in about a year now, so I wouldn't hold my breath for anything new anytime soon, but there are some great noob-friendly recipes on there, right around somewhere between 30 and 40. I don't remember the exact number. So lots of good stuff. And yeah, I think that is everything. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zerocon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, don't eat a block of lard. Orange Box Podcast out.